Peace and love, family. I'm back with another one of those helping our people elevate hope YouTube channel videos. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. As always, if you're a returner, I appreciate you for checking the content out. This one gonna be on the before and after. Well, really, this one I'm gonna just touch on a few names of some important people or people that were forgotten during the massacre and after the massacre. And I'm gonna give you a little history of Sarah Page, the Caucasian that the massacre transpired behind. And so without holding y'all, we're going to jump straight into it. Peace and love, family.
On behalf of Akuno Senko for Bay, you know what I'm saying? Jay, where you at? We're trying to help our people elevate. Hope. H-O-P-E. We're giving them hope. We doing what we got to do, you know? Every day, one step at a time, man. We're going to make it happen. Helping our people elevate. Yeah. Sometimes I practice focus, thought, and meditate. I'm trying to come with other ways to help our people elevate and seeking knowledge, make me levitate. The lifted mental state is what results from how we orchestrate. This for the family's sake. Let's self-reflect and self-evaluate. And every day, make sure the steps you take, you calculate. Receive a master's fate. I know I can't exist without the hate, but that's okay. I balance that with higher self today. Success is on this way, and after that, my flesh can pass away.
So like I said, family, we're going to talk about the before and the after the massacre. I'm going to give you a couple names. I believe it's 20 names of people who were around during and after the massacre. Greenwood's Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma was one of the most prominent and prosperous Black communities in the early 20th century. Many individuals contributed to its development. While the history of Greenwood includes several key figures, much of the credit goes to the wide range of business owners, professionals, and community leaders. Here are 20 notable Black men and 20 Black women associated with the development of Greenwood's Black Wall Street. O.W. Gurley, a wealthy landowner and businessman, Gurley purchased 40 acres of land in Tulsa and established a number of businesses. He is credited with being one of the founders of the Greenwood District and sold land to Black people migrating to Tulsa. J.B. Stratford, a prominent attorney and businessman, Stratford built the luxurious Stratford Hotel, which became a cornerstone of Greenwood. He advocated for Black self-sufficiency and played a pivotal role in the area's growth. Simon Berry, a transportation magnate, Berry owned a fleet of buses and a taxi service. He also owned a charter plane service, providing jobs and mobility for the Black community in Greenwood. A.C. Jackson. Dr. Jackson was one of the most skilled Black surgeons in the nation at the time and a major figure in Tulsa. His contribution went beyond medicine, and he was a symbol of professional success in Greenwood. Theodore Bowman. Bowman owned a successful real estate business in Greenwood, contributing to the development and prosperity of the district. He also played a significant role in the fostering economic independence for Black residents. John Wesley Williams, a successful tailor, Williams became one of the most wealthiest men in Greenwood. He owned multiple properties and employed others in the community, contributing to the area's economic growth. And what you see is an image of John Lula Williams and their son. Lula Williams, she co-owned and operated the Dreamland Theater, one of the most popular venues in Greenwood, with her husband. The theater became a key social and cultural institution in the district. And this is a before picture of the theater, and this is an after picture of the theater. Sarah Page, not much is known about Page personally, but her alleged interactions with Dick Roland in the elevator was a flashpoint that sparked the Tulsa Race Massacre. Understanding her role, however controversial, is important to the broader history of Greenwood. And so Sarah Page, or Sarah Beaver, which was her name before she got married and moved to Tulsa and met Dick Roland, but her name was Sarah Beaver. She's the third from the left. She's the little girl in the middle. And so I'm going to let y'all hear this audio from the article from Juanita Rubeck Spenzenberger, however you say her name, but let y'all hear this now.
The real Sarah Page, Center for Public Secrets, reveals full identity of woman whose encounter with Dick Roland launched Tulsa Race Massacre. Sarah Beaver, third from left, would eventually become Sarah Page, a central figure in the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921. Image courtesy Juanita Rubka Spitzenberger. Sarah Page, the young woman whose scream in the Drexel Building elevator has long been described as the incident which spurred the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, has been the focus of numerous stories over the years. However, her true identity was recently confirmed by attorney and historian Randy Hopkins for the Center for Public Secrets. Born Sarah Beaver and known as Sarie, the woman who would become infamously linked with the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre was raised in Arkansas, near Oklahoma, with her parents and siblings. When Ms. Beaver turned 18, she married Robert Fisk, a 28-year-old man from Nebraska, although the two divorced 2 years later. She then married Raymond Page in 1920, although the pair also divorced soon after. Owing to that marriage, she was known afterwards as Sarah Page. Following the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, Miss Page's character was called into question, with Tulsa Sheriff McCullough saying that if half the charges alleged in the petition of her husband, Raymond Page, for divorce are true, she is a notorious character. Yet the truth was much less titillating. While in the Drexel building elevator, Mr. Roland stepped on Miss Page's foot, and the young woman let out a scream. She then used her purse to hit Mr. Roland, who later admitted to grabbing Miss Page's arm. But the truth didn't matter as much as the legend that Sarah Page was sexually and physically assaulted by Dick Roland. Tulsa newspaper incited racist mob. The Tulsa Tribune, then the city's main newspaper, reported that Sarah Page was a victim of sexual assault at the hands of Mr. Roland. However, there was no evidence to back up the provocative headline, as Miss Page's only physical account was that of her damaged purse. The Tulsa Tribune later recanted the accusation, but the damage had already been done. Mr. Roland became a wanted man, with white mobs eager to lynch the young man. Meanwhile, Page never filed any charges against Mr. Roland, and she denied the claims made by the Tulsa Tribune that her clothes were torn and she was scratched during the encounter. Yet once again, the truth didn't matter. Sarah Page lived quiet life after massacre. In fact, Tulsa Police Chief John Gustafson cared less about the real story and more about finding an excuse for a lynching, following a notorious lynching the year before, of Mr. Roy Belton, who was taken from the Tulsa County Jail and murdered in a spectacular show that the police department tacitly affirmed. The police department took the scandalous stories printed in both the Tulsa Tribune and the Daily World and obfuscated the truth, thus allowing for Mr. Roland's arrest and the mobs of white citizens to claim a right to hang him, resulting in the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. Page, meanwhile, never publicly commented on the sordid event, which left hundreds of black men, women, and children dead, their bodies tossed into mass graves which have only recently been discovered. She later married Fred Voorhees, who was the superintendent of the building next door to the Drexel, and lived a quiet life until her death in 1967. The story of Sarah Page is part 2 of the Blackwall St. Times investigation into the truth behind the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. The Blackwall St. Times will continue reporting on this story, with thanks to Mr. Randy Hopkins, whose deep dive into the history of the event can be found at the Center for Public Secrets.
Experts are searching a new area in Tulsa for graves possibly connected to the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. Thanks so much for joining us here at 5:30. I'm Sarah Whaley.
And I'm Rick Marinon. In a Fox 23 investigation, Tulsa's investigative reporter Jana Clark has been speaking to people about this for years. In fact, she reported on this new location years ago after a former police officer pointed it out to her.
Check out these archaeological experts. They spent 3 days this week taking core samples just southwest of downtown Tulsa. Where exactly? Here, an area investigators call the Canes. Back in 2020, I told you the Canes area is one place experts wanted to check. This photo shows in recent years the homeless have been living here. I first heard about this area when people started telling me their stories in 2019. Like retired teacher Keith Johnson, he said his grandfather saw what happened.
He says, I saw them when I was working on the railroad, pull wagons up on the Arkansas River Bridge and throw bodies off by the hundreds.
He actually witnessed that.
But he actually witnessed it. He said there was at least 40 wagons. It wasn't a long discussion, but it's something that stayed with me all these years because the horror of it kind of struck me.
Tulsa City Councilor Jeannie Q says her dad told her a similar story.
He always talked about going over the 11th Street Bridge, how it always bothered him, what he saw as a little child.
What did he see?
He saw where people would pull up on the north side of the banks of the Arkansas and bodies of Afro-Americans were being tossed in the water.
This is the bridge her dad was talking about. This photo taken in 1917, 4 years before the massacre.
I think the memories just haunted him to think of the cruelty that was happening in our city.
The 11th Street Bridge is close to the Canes area. How close? About 600 feet. Here's the 11th Street Bridge, and here's the Canes area. I asked Scott Ellsworth about it. He's a Tulsa Race Massacre historian and author. He told me he thinks bodies from the Tulsa Race Massacre could be buried here.
In 1970-71, Ed Wheeler interviewed an elderly white man who said that probably on June 2nd, he walked out on that railroad bridge, which is still there. There's a sandbar next to the river, and that he counted, I think it's 58 bodies lined up on that sandbar. He then went there a day later and they disappeared. We theorize, we don't know, that they may have, these are bodies that were being, turning up. They put them on the sandbar until they tried to figure out what to do with them. Some of them, I think, were dropped off the bridge, which is where I think we get this notion that they threw the bodies into the river.
I think it's right over here.
In the summer of 2019, former Tulsa police officer Robert Patty took me to the Canes area because he thinks a mass grave could be here from the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre.
It was just an old dirt street then.
Robert says when he was working for the police department in the 70s, a sergeant showed him some photos taken in the days after the massacre.
You remember these photos?
Oh, yeah.
Did they stay in your mind?
You don't forget photos like that.
He says he saw photos of bodies and body parts of people he thinks were killed during the massacre.
Words don't describe the pictures properly. They were absolutely appalling.
And he saw photos of a trench that was dug.
Where the ground levels out, that's where they dug the hole.
He says when he was looking at the photos, he recognized the area because it's where he patrolled.
Used to chase all kinds of people down through here.
Robert's story caught Scott's attention.
Patty told a very specific story. He told about seeing this box of photographs in the break room in the basement of Tulsa Police Headquarters during the winter of 73, 74. He described the room. He described Sergeant Cotton, the older, sergeant who brought these photographs. And what was interesting about Bob Patty's description of the photograph was he described a lot of details that were irrelevant. That there seemed to be a group of white men in white shirts, Western ties, cowboy hats, who were directing this, operation as these bodies are being, taken down into this trench. You see the steam shovel. And if he was trying to make up a story, there was no reason to add these kind of details. I believe him.
For years, Scott has been researching where mass graves might be.
It's my guess, but we don't know this, okay, is that they realized they had to deal with them now, and that they walked them up the bank. There's evidence that there was a trench dug with a steam shovel, and we think that that's where they're buried.
A few months after Robert told me his story, researchers used ground-penetrating radar to search the Canes area. They said they found evidence that shows there could be a mass grave here.
The issue is trying to find them. You can bury, Clyde Snow, the famous forensic anthropologist, told me, you can, in a 10 by 10 foot square hole, you can bury 100 bodies. I mean, it's hard to find this.
Bottom line, you could be very close to finding these bodies and not find them.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
What do you think happened to those photos?
Well, I don't know. I know a number of Tulsa police officers. I've asked them. People have gone in to look. I want to go and look for myself. I don't know. They might be somewhere in a storage room with police records. Sergeant Cotton might have taken them home and destroyed them. We just have no idea.
I asked Robert why he didn't say anything about this back in the 70s. He says his sergeant warned him not to.
And he said, don't you ever mention that to anybody for as long as I'm alive. I kept my promise. He's gone now.
Why did you want to tell me about this?
So somebody could come out here and say some words, get these people a decent burial, and maybe get a little bit of acknowledgement as to what happened.
No one will know for sure if people are buried here unless we search. That's why experts are doing this next step, core sampling. That will help them know if they need to keep digging. In West Tulsa, covering news that matters. Jana Clark, Fox 23 News.
One of the biggest rumors and the secrets is in Tulsa, and I live here, and I went to an event where a European author wrote a book about the massacre. But one of the biggest secrets is that Dick Roland and Sarie Page were in an intimate relationship. This is why she never came forward in court. This is why she never testified. This is why she said the newspaper's article was wrong about what they claimed he did to her. But as the man just read, she was married twice before she came to Tulsa, and she already had a troubled lifestyle. And so this woman was a troubled female from before she even came to Tulsa. Now let's get back into it. So we have Mabel B. Little. Little owned a beauty salon and later helped rebuild Greenwood after the 1921 massacre. She was a key figure in both the community's business and social spheres. And rest in peace to Miss Little, because she was one of the remaining survivors that passed away as they're fighting for reparations currently. Also, he mentioned the reparations and the digging of the grave sites. This year alone, in 2024, I believe they found 7 bodies in the last 2 months. And so there were over 300 to 1,000 of people who were killed in this massacre, but the numbers are fluctuated, so we're gonna keep going. And this woman here is Tiffany Crutcher. I've got to work with her in the community. She's also the sister of Terrence Crutch, who was killed by Tulsa police, Betty Shelby. But her aunt, Rebecca Brown Crutcher, or Tiffany and her brother were descendants of the massacre. A lot of us, myself as well, we are all descendants of the massacre, and we are all fighting for our ancestors. But Rebecca Brown Crutcher, a businesswoman who owned a large boarding house, providing lodging to many residents and visitors in Greenwood, her entrepreneurship made her a key figure in the district. And again, this is Tiffany Crutcher. This is the great niece of Rebecca Brown Crutcher. Maddie B. Williams. Williams owned several rental properties in Greenwood and was known for her contributions to community welfare and providing housing for those who need. Emma Gurley, the wife of O.W. Gurley, Emma played a supportive role in her husband's business ventures and was involved in the management of the family's enterprise, helping to sustain the success. And like I said, we're going to go into 20, so we're going to add on just a few more, and I'm going to end with that. A.J. Smithison. Smithison was the founder and editor of the Tulsa Star, one of the most influential Black newspapers in Oklahoma. His paper advocated for civil rights, political empowerment, and economic independence for the Black communities in Greenwood. William Bill Madry. A real estate developer and businessman, Madry contributed to Greenwood's economic expansion by investing in property and providing real estate services to the community. And this is an after photo of the aftermath. And to the left, this building where this car is coming to, this church is still standing today here in Tulsa. Reverend Solomon Sir Jones, a prominent Baptist minister, businessman, and filmmaker, Jones was instrumental in Greenwood's growth. His business, along with his work in the church, provided a spiritual and economic guidance to the community. E.W. Woods, principal of Booker T. Washington High School, Woods was an educational leader who helped ensure that the youth in Greenwood had access to quality education. His influence went beyond the academics, as he was a respected community figure who championed advancement for the Black residents of Tulsa. Mary E. Jones Parrish, a journalist, teacher, and writer, Parrish is one of the survivors of the 1921 race massacre. She documented the events in her book, Events of the Tulsa Disaster, preserving the essential firsthand accounts of the destruction of Black Wall Street. Rest in peace to this sister as well. She was one of the final remaining massacre descendants, and she passed. This sister right here was also a child when it happened. But Ethel B. Robinson, a school teacher and activist, Robinson played a role in the education of Greenwood's youth. She was involved in local organizations that worked to uplift the Black community. Clara Looper. While best known for her civil rights work later in Oklahoma City, Looper had connections to Tulsa and its Black community. Her activism began early, and her role as an educator and activist had roots in the economic and social values of Black Wall Street. Rest in peace to the sister Clara Looper. Janie McGee, a businesswoman who owned a grocery store in Greenwood, McGee's contribution helped to sustain the community by providing necessary goods and services. She also played a key role in fostering local commerce. These men and women were among the many who helped build Greenwood into thriving Black communities, sometimes called the Black Wall Street because of its economic success. However, the 1921 race massacre tragically destroyed much of the district, but the legacy of these key figures continue to be remembered. These additional figures were vital to the economic, educational, social, and cultural life of Black Wall Street, contributing to its success and legacy. I didn't want to leave without touching on the man who started, the man responsible for the massacre. The name Brady is indeed linked to the history of Tulsa race massacre. W. Tate Brady, a prominent Tulsa businessman and one of the city's founders, was a known supporter of segregation and white supremacy. He is believed to have been affiliated with the Ku Klux Klan and was implicated in the events surrounding the massacre, though his exact role remains debated by some historians. Well, I'll tell y'all, he was the first one to let the first gunshot off. That's thrown all around here in Tulsa. For many years, a prominent street in Tulsa was named Brady Street in his honor. However, due to a growing awareness of Brady's racist views and connection to the violence of the Tulsa Race Massacre, there was a push to rename the street. In 2013, the street was officially changed to MB Brady Street, Austinville, in honor of the Civil War photographer Matthew Brady, though many saw it as a compromise that didn't fully address the controversy. In 2019, after continued pressure, the street was renamed Reconciliation Way to better reflect Tulsa's effort to acknowledge the heal from the racial violence in its past that still exists today. And so with that, family, these were just some key figures or some names of the people who existed during the time of the massacre. If you're new to the channel, like I said, hit the subscribe button. If you're a returner, I appreciate you. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. Leave a comment. Peace and love, family.